What's going on, guys? It's GBP baby. Welcome back to another video. I hope everybody's doing well. I'm finally back off holiday, so I'm back in the charts. And yeah, a few things I want to get off before we continue. This week, Sunday, I will be doing a live stream here on YouTube. I will schedule it in so you can set a notification to remind yourselves. But yeah, that's going to be on Sunday, so make sure you have post notifications turned on. And sweet. So we're going to get straight into things. You can see we had a very large down week on dollar last week, which is nice to see. A lot more heavier than I expected. So moving into the new week, as in this week, I do want to continue to see down close candles. So I'm looking for another down close week, meaning that I want to look to see what kind of discount PDRA's price may want to trade down into. So firstly, I have my eyes set on this PDRA right here. There's a fair value gap between this high and this low. So let's get that marked out. And then that means that I want to see the high of this week get made on either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So where would I want to find resistance in this week? Well, I do like the look of this down close candle, purely because it's acting almost as a breaker. And the reason for that is because we've got a high, a low, a higher high, and then we're anticipating low prices. So this is more like an anticipated breaker, so to speak, as in I'm anticipating this to provide resistance. So I'm going to draw out the volume of this. And what that means now is that when I drop down to the low time frames, I'm going to be looking in this area and the surrounding area to try and find a PDRA in the premium, maybe on the daily or 4 hour, that price can trade to then key off to send it down into the discount, which is where our target is. So I'm looking for price to fill this fair value gap. However, because I want a down close week, I'm looking to make a high close to this candle right here. Now we can use the entire candle, but the reason I'm not doing that is because it's too much of a large range. So I'm mainly just looking at the volume because ideally price doesn't bypass that. So another thing we can use is the consequent encroachment of this long wick right here. And I'll just get that delineated for us right now. And this video will likely be quite a long one, guys, purely because I didn't do a weekly review yesterday. So definitely stick around, get your snacks or your notebook. And I'm looking at this consequent encroachment. So let's get that marked out as weekly consequent encroachment. And then we also want to get the anticipated breaker. Marked out like so. So now we have two premium PDRAs that we want to see price find resistance at. And then we have our ideal target for price, which is to fill this fair value gap right here. So now let's drop down to the daily and we'll see what we can find. Here you can see there's a clear fair value gap between this low right here and this high, and then it's also laid with that weekly anticipated breaker. And then again you can see some beautiful relative equal lows below this low, these lows, which I do believe price is going to come back and grab. Now I did just look at what high impact news we have this week. We have high impact news tomorrow, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. So I'm expecting a lot of movement on those days particularly, as in especially the Thursday and Wednesday. But nonetheless, we should start to look what PDRAs on the 4 hour we can look at for price to key off. Now in the discount you can see there's a bullish order block right here which lines up with our weekly fair value gap. What I'm going to be looking at in there is going to be the midpoint of that. So let's get that delineated. And I'm going to use the volume, of it, purely because it's only got one large wick on one side. So I'm only concentrating on the volume. And again, as we drop down to the lower time frames, I'll be using this, which is what we call mean threshold, to try and home in as to where I want to see price trade to. So let's make this white and we'll make this level black just so it's more clear for us. And we'll also make it dotted. So we know that's a daily mean threshold. And then in the premium, yes, we have this massive fair value gap, but I'm not going to mark that out just because it's going to get too messy. We're still looking at this weekly anticipated breaker. And we also kind of have an inversion fair value gap right here between this low and this high, this high and this low. If we drag this out, this is an inversion fair value gap because we traded for the upside on it and now we've closed on the downside. So what we can do is let's make this a very light gray. We'll send this to the back. I don't want it to be too, now I can't see it at all. And then we want to look at the midpoint of that. And you'll see now that that midpoint also lines up with our weekly anticipated breaker. So again, I'm looking for this range to try and find resistance. This is a daily high So I do want to see if price can trade into that. And when we drop down to the low time frame, I do believe there's a nice pool of liquidity above there. So let's go to the 4 hour. And you'll see how Monday traded, just about taking out that Sunday and Friday lows right there. And then we've been trading on since. But I am looking at these relative equal highs to get traded to. And then again, I want to see resistance found in that anticipated breaker. So it'll be nice to see if moving into Tuesday, we can see price trade on higher and reach into that nice premium buy side liquidity before expecting a potential reversal to run down into our relative equal lows below here and into our weekly fair value gap. On the 4 hour, you can also see there's a massive fair value gap right here as well. So now we've got fair value gaps inside of fair value gaps, which is again very high probability that we're going to see price attempt to try and trade down into that. So let's see if, let's get that marked out. We'll make it red as well actually. Ooh. Excuse me. There we go. And let's go to the 1 hour. So the fact that we've, came off this Friday low like this is the only reason I'm expecting this high to get made before we trade down into that. If you had asked me on Sunday where I want to see price trade, I would have wanted to see us trade down into this into this fair value gap straight away. But you can see that Monday showed us that price likely wants to trade higher because we've created a breaker, low, high, lower low, taking out some kind of sell side liquidity, Friday's lows. And remember, we're expecting a down close week, so we're looking for a premium to get made. So moving into the new day, for me to remain bullish on dollar and obviously bearish on the pairs, I need to see this volume block, this volume right here get respected, because this is what we call an hourly breaker. And I'll explain why again. We have a low, a high, a lower low, and price is closed and traded on higher. So in the new day, if this provides support and we are still above this level, I'm happy to be long with the expectation to run out these highs right here. If we trade through this and this gets disrespected, then and only then I'll expect us to trade straight into our fair value gap. But ideally, I'm looking for price to find continued support so that we can trade on higher into our range where we're looking for liquidity. We will go to the 15-minute. Not the cleanest of days. This is actually the first time I've seen today's price action. Not too bad at all. And you'll also see this gap right here. Let's drag that through and look at that. It also lines up nicely with our breaker block. So again, even more reason as to why I want to see support found at this level, because once price is below that Sunday gap, that Sunday opening price, it will use it as like a fair value gap. So it will treat it as support or resistance. Right now you can see we're finding a level of support on it. If we were to drop through that, we'd expect resistance to help send us where? Into our weekly bearish order blocks. Our weekly fair value gap, my bad. So yeah, moving to the new day, I'd like to think we can return back to this breaker. That would offer us a nice setup potentially to then run higher off the back of news into our buy side liquidity target and start thinking about getting into that weekly, a weekly anticipated breaker. So that's going to be everything on dollar. I hope that all makes sense. Let's now head on to GBP USD. I do already have marking outs here, but I will explain all of these to you guys now anyway. So we are going to start the weekly here as well. So if we're expecting a down close week on dollar, that means we want to see an up close week on pound. And where are we reaching for on pound? Well, I am looking at these highs right here. Now this is a bit of a stretch. So we also have these highs. We have these highs, and then we also have a rejection block level. So there's a few levels that I want to see price trade to. There is a lot of news on pound. I do know on Friday as well we have a lot of high impact news, so that might help drive price. Ideally, we do get to this rejection block level, so it'll be interesting to see if we can get there. I'm gonna get rid of this for now, and yeah, let's drop down to the. In fact, first I want to draw our attention to this wick right here. The fact that we've closed, have we closed above it? Let's take a look. Right, so we've traded to the top of this wick, and we're supposed to treat wicks like gaps, meaning that if we're expecting higher prices and we're this far into a gap, when I say gap, I mean wick, I'm now looking at the midpoint and the 25% levels off this. So let's get those delineated. And again, this is how I frame where I'm looking for support. This level and this level, and then as I drop down to the lower time frames, I'll be able to identify, okay, are there any PD arrays that can support my thesis that we should have support at these levels. So we have the 50% level delineated, and now we also have the 25% level delineated. This 50% level is the very lowest I want to see price go if we're bullish. So if we go any lower than this 50% level, we're probably not as bullish as I thought, and I'd have to be more careful. But so long as So long as we stay above here, I'm happy to be long on pound with the expectation to run towards this premium. So let's go to the daily, and you'll see there's another wick here. We've got a high and a low. This is a range in itself, because there was obviously there's an order block here, isn't there, because there's a down close and then expansion, right? So what I like to do is I like to draw out this range, and you'll see the midpoint also lines up with our midpoint of our larger wick. And it's nice when you see layers like this, because it makes price a lot more high probability to trade. And I'm looking for this to provide support. So somewhere on the 4 hour, maybe I'm looking in here to see, can we find support to then get a reversal, create the low of the week, and then what, trade on higher into our premium. So let's go to our 1 hour, and this is what I had already marked out, and you'll see there's a fair value gap inside. Has it been closed? Let's take a quick look. So that fair value gap hasn't actually been closed, so that's interesting. I am going to get rid of this bigger one, this bigger fair value gap, just because, to keep it clean. I'm going to get rid of the midpoint of here. And so I'm looking for price to trade back down into this range and maybe even reach down into this fair value gap. So let's draw out this entire range, and this is the discount I want to see get traded to whilst dollar is making its premium. Remember, we're expecting the premium to get made up here. We want to see if GBP can reach down into this discount. Any lower, and I will be a little bit more weary, purely because I'd like to think that this consolidation could hold itself. But we do need to be careful and wary, because if we look at this fair value gap right here, it's below relative equal lows, right? Just like these highs that we're expecting to get taken on dollar. So we do need to be aware that price can come and grab these sell stops. However, if price manages to hold, that would be a level of divergence that we can use to our advantage. So it really depends on when and how we're trading into this range at what time of day. So if we're trading in here and we're expecting a reversal, maybe dollar's taking out its highs, but we're still in this range, then I'll happily go long with the expectation to then run to our next level. However, if we trade through it and price is looking quite weak, then it's likely we will dip down below these relative equal lows in line with dollar's highs. So again, it's just a matter of waiting and being at the right place and right time. And what I mean by that is high impact news. So maybe 8 o'clock, we'll see a setup form and we're already quite bearish. Then I'll be like, okay, cool, it's likely we're going to run for these lows. Or it could be the totally opposite. We could be in here at like 8 o'clock, and then at 8:30 we have a classic New York reversal and price trades on higher. So that's how I'm looking at the week. And that's how I frame my trades, because it's not a matter of me knowing exactly where price is going. It's just knowing where I want to see it go, and then once it gets there, I'm looking to see, okay, is it treating it how I want it to treat it? So I hope that will make sense. Let's finish up on Euro USD. I also have my marking outs here as well. Let's see. So again, we're expecting an up close week, meaning that we want to see the low get made on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. And then what kind of premium PDRAs could we be trading to? I have my eyes on this weekly high as a target for Euro. And then again, similar to how I was looking at pound, I'm looking at this long wick and I'm going to be grading it. So we'll get that midpoint marked out. We'll also get the lower quadrant marked out. And the reason I'm doing the lower quadrant this time is because we're already, there's no point in marking out the 25% level. We've already reached that 50% level, and if we're expecting a low to still be made, because I don't believe this is the low of the week, guys, if we're expecting that, then the next quadrant would simply be around this level here. So let's get that drawn out like so, and then now we drop down to the lower time frame and see, okay, what kind of discount could we be trading into again to expect a potential reversal. So let's go on the daily, and you'll see how we've just taken out a significant high, which is even more reason why we should be expecting some kind of discount PDRA to get traded to. What you'll find is that there's a fair value gap down right here in the discount, and there's also an implied fair value gap right here as well. So this isn't the cleanest. So let's go to the 4 hour, and then we have those relative equal lows again below here, and a fair value gap which lines up absolutely perfectly with the low of that wick. So let's get this marked out in blue, maybe get rid of that midpoint, and now I'm looking to see if price can reach down into this. Again, as price trades down into that discount, I'll be expecting dollar to be finding support and trading higher into above these highs. Remember, GBP is the one which I'm a little bit more suspicious of, purely because it would take a lot of strength on GBP's downside for it to get into its, below the relative equal lows, which are which we're watching quite nicely on euro. So again, that might be a matter of divergence, and we'll talk more on that later in the week. But nonetheless, again, I'm going to be looking at this the same way I'm looking at dollar right now. So we have a high, a low, a high, a high. That last down close candle, so long as price respects this and doesn't trade back above there, I'm happy to be bearish. This would be a setup if price trades into that fair value gap lined up with a breaker, top of a range. We've just taken out a significant high, high, low, high, high. So we're expecting some kind of reversal, relative equal lows, and then potential to reach down into a nice discount fair value gap. This low, I'd probably take partials at. But again, it's only assuming we don't trade back above here. If we find that price is trading back above there at any point tomorrow, then I'll be staying out. Simple as that. Because remember, I'm looking for the low of the week to get made as early as possible so that we can start thinking about potential reversals and catching in on the actual move. So I do, yeah. So that's pretty much everything. I hope that all makes sense. Go to the 15-minute, why not? Just been ticking around, not too much craziness, but again, we have high impact news tomorrow, so definitely be aware of that. These relative equal lows look way too clean, way too clean. So I do want to see those get traded too for sell side liquidity. But that's going to be everything, guys. I hope that all makes sense. Yeah, that's going to be everything. So don't forget, I am doing a live stream, live back testing this week Sunday, so make sure to turn on post notifications. If you haven't yet, join the mailing list, purely because I'll have some content coming out on there soon. And also you can join the Discord. All of the links are in the description. Smash subscribe, drop a like, drop a comment, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.